question: who decides what is morally right or morally wrong? This is a very good question. In fact, it's a very confusing question in today's secular world. With all the moral confusion in our society, it is very difficult to figure out what people should actually believe. No matter where you go, questions like these would arise. Doesn't anyone have the right to determine what is right or what is wrong for himself or herself? You have no right to impose your moral values on me. Isn't everything relative to the individual? Notice these questions and many like these are broadcast all over the blogs, all over universities, website, spewed in higher learnings and schools and corporations. It has created a massive confusion amongst people. Relativism is a term for it, and it's one of the most foremost ism, if you like, of our time, the latest trend. And relativism claims that there are no absolutes and that anyone who thinks that there are absolute is absolutely wrong. I repeat that. Relativists think that anyone who thinks that there are absolute truth is absolutely wrong. Isn't this ironic? But in itself, this is really one of the basic problems of relativism, meaning they are absolutely sure that there is no absolute truth. It sounds a lot like a contradiction to me. It is almost like somebody speaking English and say, "Do you know, I can't speak English at all." That in itself contradicts itself. This is the issue with relativism today. Higher learning and their thoughts of individual thinking and individual right of self-determination have inherent problems, and one of them is this, that which we have already said. It is self-defeating to claim that one is absolutely certain that there are no absolute truths. Other contradictions are like the assertion that the world is getting worse or better is not possible. You know why? It can only be possible unless there is a moral absolute to know that it is getting worse or getting better. Even a simple statement that says, well, how good the world is becoming or how evil the world is absolutely depends on some objective standard outside ourselves by which judgments can be made. Without this external moral standard or the external moral absolute, all we could say is that things are changing. We could not say that more poverty, abuse, or exploitation or slavery would make the world worse, or that more peace and harmony and love would make the world better. We can't. We absolutely can't. All we can say it is changing. It's only by comparing this change to a standard outside, a standard that is absolutely immutable, a moral standard outside the system. It's only by comparing to this that we can absolutely say that the world is getting better or getting worse. I mean, I could quote another example. How can we say that Osama bin Laden is worse than Jesus Christ unless we have some objective standard by which to know which is better or which is worse? I'll give another example. Assuming that you are in a shopping center and that car park is totally full, and then after waiting for about an hour, you finally spotted an empty car spot, and you were so happy with that, and as you start to turn into empty car spot, a car behind you swings around, passes you, and takes your car spot. Now, depending on how stressful you are on that day, your words that come out of your mouth may not be very nice. a basic one like, how could you, how dare you, don't you know, all these will come out of the word. And the only reason why one could say that is because both the drivers subscribe to an external standard that they both agree on, meaning the external standard suggests a first-come, first-served basis, which they all agree on. The external standard has a moral standing that they both doesn't have to get together and make a law through parliament. They intuitively know that it's not right to take someone else's spot when you are not the first one there. So you and the other driver subscribe to an external standard. In fact, your anger, your incensed nature is only justified by knowing that you both subscribe to this standard. If in this instance there is no absolute standard, then well, bad luck. It's a survival of the fittest. The guy at the back has a fastest car and he claims a spot and he swings around faster than you. Bad luck. On what judgment and what basis can we say whether that is good or that is bad? Without an external standard, it's just the luck of the draw. It's just that you are too slow in swinging into the car park. Imagine what the world will be like without this external moral standard. This external moral standard, therefore, is not invented. No one invented the laws of logic. They're just part of the furniture of the universe. Likewise, moral laws are not invented. They are discovered. They just exist, given by a moral law giver. Some would explain that moral law is a product of herd instinct. But moral laws are not a product of herd instinct, since we sometimes choose duty over instinct. For example, when a person chooses to rush into a burning building to save a child, it's the ultimate demonstration of this. When the person sacrifices his or her own life to save another, sacrifices against the instinct of personal survival and risking that to save somebody's life. And that is not a herd instinct. Another one is not social conditioning. For instance, we all know, regardless of who we are and what education we have, we all know torturing babies for fun is morally wrong. You see, how do we know that that's wrong and that's evil unless there is a moral law that informs us that they are wrong outside our natural system? And further, our moral law principles are not discovered by our actions, but by our reactions. Since we are all imperfect and do not always do what we know we ought to do, that is why we can't determine moral laws by what we do to others. But there are many things we don't want others to do to us, such as lying, cheating, abusing, killing. So moral laws are based on what we want others to do to us. And this is exactly what Jesus meant in Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. I quote, "Do to others what you would have them do to you," unquote. So in conclusion, who determines what is morally right or morally wrong? Well, somebody has to. Somebody is not within our system. Somebody has the authority and the power to give and maintain and police this moral law. That person has to be outside our system. That person is God, the moral lawgiver who determines the moral law, and they're written in His word and in our hearts.